Welcome back to Media Power Revolution, the conference down in central London here in the University of London Senate House. I'm talking to Sharon Coen, who's a senior lecturer in media psychology at the University of Salford. Sharon, you're doing some very interesting research on how access to news affects different populations. Can you tell us something about it?
Yes, we've been doing a series of studies in collaboration with Professor Karen, in which we looked at media coverage in different nations. We started with 4, then the book that is being published talks about 6 nations. The last wave looks at 11 different nations. And what we did was combining news, a content analysis of news with a survey and a representative sample of the population. And
so you're looking at how news affects people?
Yes, we're looking at how news coverage corresponds to different levels of knowledge in the various populations across countries, yes. And what we found is, in general, that it looks like in countries where news providers give a sound coverage of hard news and politics, economics, and everything that is defined as hard news, people tend to know more about it. So
not very surprising in that sense. Were there any surprises?
Well, there were surprises in the sense that, number one, it can seem intuitive that news coverage corresponds to knowledge, but actually there's not much empirical work that shows that that's the case. So it's important to be able to state that empirically. And of course, also a different contribution is that it's not important that much how much you cover, but the quality of coverage is also important. So if you simply provide hard news without giving a context, without explaining the background, without contextualizing somehow your news, people are less likely to learn from it, from your news.
So what did you find with the American side of this?
In the US, in 2009, for example, we find an anomalous high level of coverage of hard news, in which basically looked like the news media were doing their job by providing very sound coverage of hard news. But that did not correspond to high levels of knowledge in the population. So we tried to dig a bit deeper and understand what was going on. And what we found was that the reason why, well, it is possible that the reason why people didn't learn as much was that the way in which hard news were covered, were talked about in the US media. In fact, in that case, we had more political game sort of news. So
it's who's beating who, kind of who scored a point today in the battle, in the political battle. Yeah,
yes.
There's a gamification of politics. But okay, I mean, I'm a journalist. How do you want us to cover it? Are you coming in from this very worthy? There's a number of media bodies, that very worthily say we need more serious, proper coverage of stuff, which isn't sensationalist and stuff like this. So you say, okay, how do we get viewers for that?
Well, I think that viewers come when the viewers spontaneously will come when they understand that it's important for them to understand the background. It's not necessary to be boring to provide a sound type of knowledge. I mean, in psychology we teach statistics and research methods, and that can be seen as a very boring and dry subject, statistics and things like that. But there are people who actually can make it important and exciting. And I think that people, the moment in which you get people to understand that the stuff we're talking about is about them as well, and that politics is not about a group of people up there that are moving us like pawns on a chessboard, but it's about us. We are politics as well. Then people are going to be a bit more interested in that as well, so long as you manage to empower them and make them understand what their role is in their society.
So in the States, you've got this problem that I mean, what's going on there?
Well, I think also that I haven't looked at the data properly yet, but I think there is a problem in the literature with the way, also in that case, news are covered. So one of the journalistic rules, a basic journalistic rules, is the rule of balance. So whenever you present a news pro climate change, you would also present the group of people who don't agree with that and say, well, actually, it's all fake, it doesn't exist, because you are obeying to a very important rule of journalistic standard, that is, you need to provide a wide range of views. The problem, though, is that in some cases, there is no balance. You know, things are either right or wrong. So representing the opposite view is actually misleading. And that is the problem sometimes, you know, that trying to be good quality journalists, they end up misrepresenting what things are.
But you don't think that's because that represents certain powerful interests as well, who are lobbying them quite a lot?
Well, I think I'm not in the position to talk about this. I don't have evidence or data supporting that. So I think it's a possibility, but I have no data in my hands to say anything about it.
Okay, Sharon, thank you very, very much. That was extremely interesting. This is Richard Hearing for Vision on TV. Catch more shows on Plug and Play channel.